Welcome to the Gifted and Talented Awareness Session for San Elizario I.S.D. for the 2020-2021 school year. My name is Lisa Reniger. I'm the Administrator for Research and Evaluation, and I'm also the leader for Gifted and Talented Education in our district. My email address and telephone number are on the screen. This session will help all of us to remember and realize the characteristics of gifted and talented students, so we better understand who might benefit from being tested for GT this year. This recorded session can be found on the district's website at www.seisd.net. Once you go to the website, click Departments at the top, then click Planning and Instruction, click Gifted and Talented, and then click Gifted and Talented Awareness 2021. The agenda for this session will cover: what does being gifted and talented mean? What are the characteristics of a gifted child, to include very young children? We'll discuss the COVID-19 pandemic and the effect that's going to have on our GT services and testing for this year. We'll look at an overview of gifted program services offered by San Elizario I.S.D. We'll discuss the process for nomination and identification of GT students, and then we'll look at the testing instruments used by our district. What does it mean to be gifted and talented according to the state of Texas? As can be found in the Texas State Plan for the Education of Gifted and Talented Students, a gifted and talented student means children and youth with outstanding talent who perform or show the potential for performing at remarkably high levels of accomplishment when compared with others of their age, experience, or environment. These children and youth exhibit high performance capability in intellectual, creative, and/or artistic areas, possess an unusual leadership capacity, or excel in specific academic fields. To continue the definition, they require services or activities not ordinarily provided by the schools. Outstanding talents are present in children and youth from all cultural groups, across all economic states, and in all areas of human endeavor. So based on the definition we just looked at, who are gifted and talented kids? They are often not who you think. We sometimes think that only the bright and compliant student is the GT student, thinking about the ones who are perfectly behaved with excellent grades, who always raise their hand. That's not always the case. GT kids can be English language learners, special education students, they can be receiving 504 services, or they can be students who are underachievers. We need to open our eyes and cast a wide net with our GT nominations, and the testing will help determine who is actually in need of GT services. Let's take a look at some common characteristics in GT kids, specifically in young children. These are characteristics that might be observed by parents as they take care of their young children at home. Infants may get fussy if facing one direction for too long. As infants, they might appear alert and may need less sleep than children that are not GT. Potential GT young children frequently reach milestones such as walking and first speech earlier than average. They may speak late, but then speak in complete sentences. Additional GT traits in young children may include a strong desire to explore, investigate, and master their environment, which might include opening up cabinets and taking things apart. They might master toys and games very early and then discard them out of boredom. They might be very active, but their activity has a purpose, not to be confused with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. They can distinguish between reality and fantasy, and questions about Santa or the Tooth Fairy might come much earlier than with other children. As potential GT children continue to get older, some other cognitive traits that are common include being very observant about their environment and extremely curious about the world around them, including how things work, having intense interests, even passions. And oftentimes a gifted and talented student will not be interested in anything that's not an area of their passion. Having a long attention span and an excellent memory, which might mean being able to recall conversations that happened a long time ago, even as a very young child. For the long attention span, it could be a child very, very young, being able to sit there for hours solving a jigsaw puzzle when other students would have lost interest. having excellent reasoning skills, being able to put together seemingly unrelated things, and having well-developed powers of abstraction, conceptualization, and synthesis, being able to solve problems and connect things that older children would usually be able to do. Additional common GT cognitive traits include quickly and easily seeing relationships in ideas, objects, or facts, elaborate and original thinking, excellent problem-solving skills, learning quickly and with less practice and repetition than other students might need, and having an unusual or vivid imagination. In addition to common cognitive traits, here are some common GT social and emotional traits. Being interested in philosophical and social issues, such as the environment and global warming. Being very sensitive, both emotionally and even physically, such as being very irritated by tags that are left in the clothing. Being concerned about fairness and injustice in the world. Being a perfectionist, which is actually a very common GT characteristic. Being overly energetic, having a well-developed sense of humor, and even understanding jokes that are geared towards an older audience. Usually intrinsically motivated, meaning they might motivate themselves to achieve or to learn something as opposed to it coming from an external reward, and relating well to parents, teachers, and other adults. In fact, a lot of GT students prefer the company of adults over their peers. Only about 2.5% of the general population is actually considered gifted, so it's difficult for parents and teachers to tell whether a student that they work with or a child that they have at home is bright or actually gifted. So here's a chart that might be helpful in telling the difference between bright and gifted. On the left, we have characteristics of a student who might be bright, and on the right would be a similar characteristic, but how it relates to a child who might be actually gifted. Here are some examples. A bright student would raise their hand and usually know the answer to the question. A gifted student might be the one asking the question. A bright student is interested, while a gifted child is highly curious. A bright student is attentive and compliant, while a gifted student is highly involved. A bright student has good ideas, while a gifted student has wild, silly ideas. A bright student works hard and does what's expected of them. A gifted student might play around, and you think they're not learning, but when it comes time for testing, they test very well. A bright student answers the question and may be able to give you back exactly what they learned during the lesson, but a gifted student can discuss in detail and elaborate on their learning. A bright student might listen with interest, but a gifted student shows passion and strong feelings about what's being discussed. To learn, a bright student might need 6 to 8 repetitions to master the content, while a gifted student might need 1 to 2 repetitions to master the content. A bright student is alert, while a gifted student is keenly observant. A bright student completes their assignments on time and does what's expected, while a gifted student begins new projects that weren't even assigned. A bright student enjoys being at school, while a gifted student enjoys the process of learning. A bright child might grasp the meaning of something they're learning, while a gifted student can make connections between their learning and seemingly unrelated concepts. A bright student enjoys being around their peers, while a gifted student might enjoy being around adults. A bright student can copy accurately, while a gifted student might create a brand new design. We all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a big effect on our daily lives, including how school is being conducted in the 2021 school year. I wanted to assure you a little bit about our Gifted and Talented program and how that's being affected, or what you might see related to COVID-19. San Elizario I.S.D. offers GT services via Learning at Home. GT coordinators, who are generally our librarians in most cases, have set up Google Classrooms and teach the GT students online with enrichment activities. Students in grades 1 through 6 are being invited to a separate Google Classroom where they meet for at least 90 minutes a week for enrichment activities. All teachers in San Elizario I.S.D. are trained in 30 hours of GT instruction, and are expected to differentiate curriculum in each subject and grade level, whether online or on campus. We are finding ways to take our current GT activities online or manage them in COVID-safe ways. Testing for this year's GT nominees will occur on campus in COVID-safe, socially distant spaces with very small groups. Please know that we are taking COVID-19 precautions very seriously and will continue to serve our gifted and talented students this year. Once a student in San Elizario I.S.D. has been identified as gifted and talented, these are the services that he or she will receive. In grades 1 through 6, we have a weekly 90-minute GT pull-out class during the day. This means that all gifted and talented students in that grade level are brought together either via a Google Classroom or in person once in-person learning resumes, and they learn together because GT students need to be with like minds during the school day or the school week. Now for kindergarten, we don't identify GT students until later in the fall semester, so once those GT students are identified in kindergarten, they will be included in the weekly pullout. We have extracurricular clubs such as robotics and STEM. Differentiation of instruction in each class and subject is expected throughout the day. Team Quest is a competition we've attended in the past, and we're looking for ways to do that in a virtual setting for 2021. And we also do field trips for our gifted and talented students, and we are looking at safer ways to do that or virtual ways to take field trips this year. And we also have a STEM Expo where our GT kids can show off projects that they've been working on that demonstrate areas of their passion. But again, all of these services, we're looking at other ways to provide them if we're not learning in a face-to-face environment this year. For our gifted and talented students at the secondary level, meaning grades 7 through 12, these are some of the program options we have. At Garcia Enriquez Middle School, GT students can opt to take a class that's built into their schedule, where they're together with other gifted and talented students learning enrichment curriculum. There is robotics or Team Quest, which can be face-to-face or virtual for 2021. Secondary students can take pre-AP, AP, which is advanced placement, and dual credit classes at San Elizario High School, as well as some offerings at Garcia Enriquez Middle School. There are lots of activities such as student council, clubs, National Honor Society, and field trips or virtual field trips. In any of these services, we're exploring ways to make them COVID safe in our current environment. Now that we know the definition of gifted and talented according to the state, we've looked at a number of characteristics for GT students, and we've looked at the program offerings in San Elizario I.S.D. So how do we go about getting a child nominated and placed into GT services? That all starts with nominations that stem from knowing and understanding these gifted traits. This is the process San Elizario I.S.D. will follow this year for nominations and testing. Children can be nominated for GT testing by their parents, their peers, their teachers, or they can actually nominate themselves. The nomination deadline this year is September 25th of 2020. The GT nomination form is found at the SEISD website. There is a different form for parents and teachers, and the form for parents is found in both English and Spanish. Our website is www.seisd.net. Click on Departments at the top, click on Planning and Instruction, click on Gifted and Talented, and then click on the GT nomination form, whichever form you're going to download. You'll fill out the form, and then you can email the form to your campus GT coordinator, which we'll see on the next slide, their contact information. You can also drop off the nomination form at campus, or you can mail it by U.S. mail. If you're going to nominate your student or your child for GT testing this year, these are the people that you would send your nomination forms to. The central office would be Lisa Reniger, Alarcon Elementary, Blanca Guerrero, who is the librarian. At Borrego Elementary, Nancy Hawkes, who's the librarian. At Zambrano Elementary, be Christine Herrera, who's the librarian, or Lorraine Ortega, who's a teacher. At Garcia Enriquez Middle School, it would be Miriam Sanchez, who is a teacher. And at San Elizario High School would be Ana Luna or Jorge Maese, both teachers. You'll see their email addresses on the screen. If you're a parent who wishes to nominate your son or daughter for gifted and talented testing, this is an example of what the form looks like in either English or Spanish. At the top is basic identifying information about your child. In the middle is a place for you to describe in detail how your child is above the rest in terms of their academic ability when compared to their age-level peers. At the bottom are some categories such as leadership ability, mathematics, social studies, writing ability, and a rubric of 1 to 5 to help you decide where your child falls in those different areas. Now, once you fill out the form, you can email the form to your campus GT coordinator, you can mail it through United States Mail, or you can drop it off at the campus. Remember, the deadline for nomination for our parents and our teachers is September 25th of 2020. If you are a teacher and you wish to nominate one or more of your students this year for GT testing, be sure to download the correct form from the website or check your email from your campus GT coordinator. The deadline to nominate for teachers as well is September 25th of 2020. Once the GT nominations have been received, here's what happens next. Students are tested with parent permission in November and December of 2020. In blue, you'll see the 3 major testing instruments that we use in I.S.D. The first is the Torrance test of creativity, which measures how creative a student might be when compared to their age-level peers. Next, we use the Iowa test of academic ability, and we look for high achievement in reading and mathematics. The third test we use is the COGAT test, which primarily tests nonverbal ability and reasoning skills. In purple, you'll see some additional things we use to determine whether a child might be gifted and talented beyond those testing instruments. That includes parent and teacher observations, student work and writing samples, and grades or star scores for our students who are in grades 4 or above. In order to reiterate our commitment to testing our students safely for GT this year, considering the COVID-19 situation, here's a little bit of information about how that will be conducted. GT testing this year will occur on campus in 2020-21. GT testers will be in small, socially distanced groups with masks and/or face shields and partitions to separate students. Testing rooms will be disinfected. Students who are learning at home will come to campus by appointment in order to test, and all COVID-19 precautions will be followed to ensure the safety of our GT testers. In closing, this session has served as a review of common GT characteristics, programs, and services. If you would like to nominate your student or your child, the parent or teacher GT nomination form is due by September 25th, 2020. It may be emailed to your campus GT coordinator, dropped off at the campus, or sent via U.S. mail. We hope to receive your nominations and thank you for your time. Have a good day.